It's just so powerful to think about the fact that we all are masters of our fate, right? We get to make decisions right now that affect our future self. And we get to decide for ourselves how our life is going to end up. Now, obviously there's some things that come out of our control, but for the most part, we get to make those decisions for ourselves, and we get to have the life that we live. So, today I want to talk to you about something I'm really passionate about. I really love this new MetaPWR line, and I'll tell you along the way some of the reasons that I'm passionate about it, and maybe just share with you some of my own personal experience with this. And so the question is, are we ready to live our most powerful life? Right? We want to live more powerfully. We want to live more in the moment. Yes, I love this. How old are you, pal? 7. That is awesome. Would everybody like to live the powerful life of my young friend here? Yeah, right? 7.5. It's very important. I'm 52 and 9/12, so we're getting into those things. So today I want to talk about a couple of things. Here's our goals for today. I want to talk about, do you control your metabolism, or are you in a situation in which your metabolism controls you? What's that balance look like in your own life? We want to talk about why the world needs to be really talking about metabolism. This is a significant issue. I'll share with you some of the U.S. statistics. I would say that the U.S. is number 1 in this particular issue. We, as I travel the world, as I give this presentation around the world, I have yet to find another country that does as poorly as the U.S. does. So I'll lead with that statistic. I don't know what they are for Canada, but when I come back and we talk about this again, I will have some Canada numbers for you, okay? I want to help us learn about the relationship between health span, biological age, and our metabolic health, because those 3 are related. And then lastly, we'll talk about the tools that can help slow the signs of aging for us. Okay? So when we think about metabolic health, think about how you do in each of these categories. How is your energy throughout the day? How well do you sleep at night? What are the things that are preventing you from sleeping well at night? How's your clarity of thought throughout the day? How's your focus doing? How's your weight? What does that lovely little number on your scale tell you? All right? How's your mood? How do you handle your stress? And we'll talk about how each of those things affect our metabolic health, because each of those things contribute to how healthy we are metabolically. Of course, in doTERRA, we refer back to our wellness pyramid. We really want to make sure that we are building that solid foundation of nutrition, because it is so very, very important. We want to make sure that we're moving more. As it turns out, muscles are meant to move. Our heart was meant to beat. The faster our heart beats during exercise, the stronger that muscle becomes. If we sit on our couch all day, it turns out our muscles aren't moving and our heart isn't beating very fast, and so it doesn't get the exercise it needs, and so it becomes weaker. I was just having this conversation in clinic with a patient on Monday and said, we have to tear down muscle to build muscle. That's just the way it works. There's no other way to do it. And so movement is so very important for us throughout the day. We need to make sure we're getting enough rest, and that we're managing our stress, and then that we're reducing our exposure to toxins. And then we move up into self-informed care, and then proactive medical care. That's kind of where I sit, and that we sometimes need to access medical professionals and healthcare professionals, whether they be chiropractors, physicians, naturopaths, to help us deal with some of those things that may be a little bit beyond our own expertise. So when we ask the question, what is metabolic health? Let me just define it really simply for us. Metabolic health has everything to do with how well do we utilize the macronutrients that we consume every day. That's really what it comes down to. So for instance, my fats, my proteins, my carbohydrates, what does my body do with those? That's metabolic health. And what our body does with those goes down to cellular function. The other part about metabolic health that I'll talk about in just a minute is that as we age, as we have more birthdays, our cells don't act like they did when we were 7.5. Unfortunately. And so we feel that, don't we? We don't feel the same at 35 as we did at 25. We don't feel the same in our mid-40s as we did at 25. And that is simply the changing of our cellular health over time. And we can do some things about that. So I want to introduce you to the 5 pillars of metabolic health. And these are very, very important. So we know that if we're eating healthy, we can support good metabolic health. We know that if we're having daily movement, my goal is always 10,000 steps a day. So we were talking yesterday on a travel day, as we were walking through airports, that whenever we can, I don't take those moving sidewalks because travel days are hard to get my steps in, and so I walk as much as I can. If I have a layover, I'm walking the airport to get some more steps in. We want to make sure that we're having healthy connections. As it turns out, our relationships and how healthy they are actually determine longevity, which is interesting. It's actually the #1 predictor of how long we will live. If our relationships are healthy, we will live longer than if our relationships are unhealthy. Also, stress management, making sure we get enough sleep. Stress wreaks havoc on our systems. As our cortisol level rise from our adrenal glands, cortisol is great if I'm being attacked by a bear. But if I'm on the freeway for an hour and a half, I don't want that cortisol level to rise. But it does anyway, because my system can't determine the difference between a bear jumping out at me in the woods and being cut off on the freeway. It responds the same way. And so we have to learn how to manage that stress to where our system isn't flooded with cortisol all the time. And then lastly is smart supplementation. Making sure that we're doing the things, taking the things that will support a healthy metabolism throughout our lives. So here's that statistic I was telling you about. They did a study recently in the US and found that only 6.8% of the US population is actually healthy as far as a cardiovascular, cardiometabolic area. 6.8%. So that means that this product line that we're going to talk about today is perfect for only about 93% of the population. So when you think about a market that's out there, okay, 93%, we can work with that. But here's the thing. Remember I told you that we're all aging, right? We're all having birthdays every year. Is anybody not having a birthday every year? You're not? You've decided you stop it. Okay, that's a good plan. I haven't convinced my family yet how to do that. But doTERRA has yet to develop a product that stops birthdays. So until they do, we're going to continue to have birthdays. And as we have birthdays, as we age chronologically, our cells change. And they act differently than they did before. And so even that 7%, 6.8% of the population that don't have the cardiometabolic issues that the 93% do, even those people can still benefit from this product line we're talking about today. So we need to understand the fact that metabolic health and biologic age are inseparable. As we age chronologically, metabolic health changes. Those of us that are over the age of 7.5 or over the age of 25 are recognizing that. I'm 52. I recognize my system does not respond the same as it did when I was in my early 40s or my early 30s. It changes. And that is just the time going on. But there are some things that we can do. Now, this next slide is a really important slide. When we talk about this graph, this is lifespan versus health span. When we talk about health span, here's the easiest way for me to explain health span. When I used to say when I get old, but my kids would say that that's happened. So when I get older than I am now, what I want to do is I want to go fishing with my grandkids, spend an evening with my wife, go to bed, and die in my sleep at the ripe old age of 87 or 95 or whatever that ends up being. I want to be able to do the things that I would like to do right up until the time that I pass away. Now, just like the video we just saw, Being able to do that has everything to do with what decisions I make right now today. I don't get to make that decision at 85. Oh, now I want to change my life so that I can do these things. I have to be making those decisions now. What do I want the future to look like? And so what we know from research is that we're living longer, except for maybe in the US. Our lifespan's actually decreased over the last 6 years. But most other countries, lifespan is increasing, okay? With lifespan increasing, sadly, our health span has not increased. We actually tend to spend more of our time towards the last of our life sicker. Now, modern medicine has been able to increase that. You see that little bump on the black line that says, oh, I'm super sick, but now I'm in the ICU, or I'm on all sorts of interventions, or I'm getting surgeries that bump that lifespan up a little bit longer. Actually, the statistics tell us that 1/3 of the dollars you will spend on healthcare in your life are spent in the last 12 months of your life. 1/3 of those dollars are spent in the last 12 months to get that little extra bump, okay? But what I would like to do is be the orange line. Have a very active lifestyle until right towards the very end, and then just have it be like, oh, I'm gone. That's my goal. I would like my health span to match my lifespan as best I can. So we're going to talk about some of the things that you need to do to help you become that orange line. That's my goal. So I told you that as we age, our body changes. So as it turns out, at about age 25, the research supports that's about when we start aging, is at the age 25. Now, I'm looking around the room. There's a few people in here that are probably over the age of 25. Okay? So those of us that have crossed that threshold, okay, we're aging. That's what's happening. Our cells are actually expressing different genes past age 25 than they did before age 25. As a matter of fact, we know that our NAD level starts to decline after age 25, and NAD is a very important molecule. NAD is a precursor to something called ATP. ATP is our energy block. All life, animal, human, plants, all life uses ATP to produce energy, or to use as energy, okay? That's what we get up for in the morning. That's what helps us move during the day. That's what helps us think as we burn this molecule called ATP. But after age 25, that NAD level starts to decline, which therefore means we have less ATP available for us. So therefore, less energy. This explains why, at 52, I don't feel like I have the same energy that I did at 25. Because that NAD level is declining, therefore my body can make less and less ATP, okay? And so, because that happens, metabolic function declines. That's why we always say, well, our metabolism is slowed down. I can't consume the same things I did in my 20s as I can in my 40s, because it goes to different places than it used to, right? And so we begin to realize that our metabolism is changing. It has a lot to do with that NAD decrease over time. So it's an important thing. So there are 4 obstacles really when it comes to our metabolic health that we have to overcome. One is, how are our fat cells maturing? And I'm going to do a deep dive into that today. Number 2 is, what happens to our blood sugar? How well does our system handle our blood sugar? Number 3 is our cellular integrity. Do our cells remain intact, and are they doing the things that we would like them to do? And then the last one is, inferior supplementation is a significant problem in the market today. So we're going to talk about those things today. So I want you to think about what your most powerful life will look like. I told you what my definition is. Going fishing with my grandchildren, spending a day doing that, spending some time with my best friend, my sweetheart, of years and years and years, going to sleep and passing away in my sleep. That's my ideal. That's a powerful life for me, that I would be able to do all those things, right? And to do that, I have to be doing some things now. So I want you to really spend some time visualizing what does your most powerful life look like? What do you want things to look like a year from now, a decade from now, 4 decades from now? And what are the things that you're willing to do now to deal with that? So, let's talk about this. 9 out of the 10 most impactful risk factors for death are rooted in nutrition. 9 out of 10. Now, I went to medical school at the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona. I spent 4 years in medical school, and I remember the day we talked about nutrition. How sad is that, right? Especially considering that 9 out of 10 issues come from nutrition, and we got 1 day of nutrition education in medical school. Now, since then, I've learned a whole lot more, because it's problematic. But we have to recognize that there are numerous challenges that happen to us simply because we have poor nutrition. I've been talking today in the expo to some people. I said, look, the sad part is that wherever the Western diet goes, so goes the problems that we have in the Western Hemisphere. So as I get to travel the world and be in Italy and South Korea and Japan and South Africa and Australia, and I drive through those locations and I see the McDonald's, the Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? All of those places that started back home, I also see some of those challenges happening. So, pretty significant. So nutrition is very important. Uncontrolled inflammation is the root of nearly all disease. Inflammation is rampant in our society, and sadly, inflammation often comes from our diet. The more processed foods we consume, the higher the inflammatory load in our system. And I can tell you, just having dealt with patients over the last several decades, that when they're dealing with inflammatory-rooted issues, when we change their diet to be no processed foods and all whole foods, that inflammation significantly changes. And then very rarely do we have to treat with pharmaceuticals, because they're changing really what's going on with that root cause. And then lastly is this: it's estimated that more than 90% of all doctor visits are stress-related. That's true. I'm a primary care doctor, family physician, and our statistics tell us that 75% of the visits of patients that come to see us have some form of emotional health dealing with that. So when I am talking with patients, the question that I ask them is, how are you dealing with this? Not, how's your body, what are your symptoms like? What I'm really asking is, emotionally, how is your mindset responding to what's going on? Because I want to know, because we have to address that. As a matter of fact, several of my patients that will be compliant because I'm on stage, significant metabolic challenges. Several of my patients, we actually deal with mindset for the first 3 months. I don't even address those other issues, because we have to focus on their mindset before we can get their body right. We've got to get their mental health right. And if we can work on that, thank you. We can work on their mindset and how their mind is responding to what's going on, then we can really work on the root cause of what they're dealing with. Okay? So that being said, I want to talk for just a second about doTERRA's Lifelong Vitality Pack. And here's why. I was asked several times in the expo, well, Dr. Riggs, can I just do MetaPWR instead of Lifelong Vitality? Because it doesn't do the same thing. Let me just be very clear in a statement. No. That's a complete sentence. I tell my wife that all the time. No is a complete sentence. You don't need to do anything after that. No, it does not do the same thing. When we're dealing with Lifelong Vitality Pack, what we're talking about there is micronutrients. The micronutrients that your cells need to function properly, enzymatically, engaging with their proteins, expression of RNA and DNA. That's really what this is all about. That's why we have Lifelong Vitality. So it's very different than dealing with the metabolic issues that we're having, okay? So in my mind, this is the foundation before you go to MetaPWR, okay? There's some people that have to make that choice when it comes to wallet share of which one they do, but in my mind, when you can make the decision to do both, you do both, because this will give you that good foundation for your cells to function optimally, and then we can address the fact that your cells need to function optimally in a metabolic way. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But this is really, really important. An important concept I want to get across. Okay, so really this is a comprehensive system. You can look there that we've got the cellular longevity blend, the cellular energy blend, that's our alpha CRS. You can see the essential fatty acids, carotenoid blend of CPDG oils, that's in our XE-omegas, and then our essential vitamins and essential minerals that you can see that are chelated. And as of 2021, the end of last year, for those of you that may be dealing with something called an MTHFR mutation, our B vitamins are methylated. And so the B vitamins that we have within our Lifelong Vitality Pack are methylated. So you will absorb those much easier. That's in response to now the overwhelming evidence that lots of people have this issue. And we realize that those that don't have the issue can still absorb the ones that are methylated, and those that do have the challenge can still absorb the B vitamins there. So really an important point. So we'll talk about dosing here for a second. You can see here's our dosing chart for Lifelong Vitality. If you're a smaller person, you're under about 120 pounds or 50 kilograms, and I would say the range is probably 120 to 135. Then you go one tablet of each of those in the morning meal and one tablet in the evening meal. If you're a larger person, above 130 or so pounds or above 50 kilograms, then you go with your full morning dose of 2 in the morning and 2 in the evening, okay, of each of those. So that's your dosing for that. So let's move on to MetaPWR for a minute. Should we talk about MetaPWR system for a second? I'm pretty excited about this one. So let's talk about maturing fat cells. Now we can use all sorts of fancy terms like steatohepatosis. We can talk about adipocyte maturation. We're going to use some simple terms here today. And the way that I like to explain this, and I forgot my balloons, so we're just going to use a slide, but I like to use balloons to understand the concept we're about to talk about. So here's the slide, okay? We all have fat cells, okay? Little babies have fat cells that have brown fat. Little kids do. And brown fat is just chock full of mitochondria, and that's why kids have a ton of energy. It's because that mitochondria is just churning up that ATP. We as adults have the same number of brown fat cells, but it turns out our bodies are a little bit bigger, so we got to spread that ATP over a bigger system. That's why we don't have quite the energy that our younger folks have. The other thing that's true is that we stop making new numbers of fat cells around the age of 17 or 18. So we all have about the same number of fat cells, and we all have the same number that we had when we were 17 or 18. The only thing that's changed on those fat cells is their size, okay? So if we're dealing with the same number of fat cells that we've had our whole life, we can decide to have fat cells. Do you see on the left there? Left side of the screen, there's small balloons. Those are small fat cells. Those are fat cells the size in which they were born. I want you to think of those as the pink fat cells. And then as those fat cells mature, being bathed in insulin and cortisol, which are normal in our system, what happens is those fat cells start accumulating lipid from the bloodstream to get plumper. Fluffier fat cells. You can see on the right side of the screen, we have the same number of balloons in that box as we do for the left side of the screen, but they're just fluffier balloons. Right? I want to think of those as red balloons, and you'll understand in a minute. So think of big, fluffy, red balloons, or small, pink balloons. This is going to become important. Okay? So that's our fat cell story. So now I'm going to go into some science. So where's my nerd herd? All right, let's do some science here. This is going to be fun. Okay? So what we did is we did an experiment. We're all about research at doTERRA. We love to know things. So we took immature fat cells, okay, and we decided we would grow those fat cells in a medium. And so on day 6, we put them in a maintenance medium, which is insulin and, by the way, dexamethasone. For some reason it doesn't show dexamethasone. Oh, there's one over here. So, and dexamethasone, which is a steroid. And we said, okay, that's normally what fat cells are bathed in, and they did what normal fat cells do. They became fluffier, right? You can see that they pulled in some lipid and became larger fat cells. Those are what we call called mature adipocytes. Okay? Adipocytes is a fancy name for a fat cell. So we wanted to know, can we stop the process with an essential oil blend? Is there a way to stop them from becoming large balloons? And so we did some research. Now this is the slide that will show you pink, healthy, small balloons and red, large, fluffy balloons. You see the difference between those two? It's the same stain that we used on those slides. They call it H&E stain. And it stains for lipid. And you can see those that are on the left-hand side of the slide don't have much lipid in them. Those on the right hand of the slide have lots of lipid in them. And so that's the difference between a mature adipocyte, a mature fat cell, and an immature fat cell. So we looked at our Smart and Sassy blend. Everybody familiar with Smart and Sassy? Okay. I always told my kids I'm working on my Sassy, not so much the Smart. So what we found is that and you can see here that this is dilutions of Smart and Sassy, that we look and we're like, look, yeah, it's doing its job. We're seeing less lipid accumulation within the fat cells. And if you go out here, you can see even less. So as the concentration rises from left to right, you get less maturation of those fat cells. They stay nice, small balloons. Okay? And then we thought, well, what if we changed up our blend? Right? Let's try it. And so we did. We looked at research, we're like, maybe this, maybe we change it this way. And so we tried it again. This is trial blend number 2. It was worse. It was not good. When we looked at trial blend number 2. And this is the beauty of science. This is why I love science. We ask the question, we do the experiment, and we go, oh, we just learned something. Right? And we just learned that in trial blend number 2, our ratio of things made things worse. And I'll show you a summary slide in a minute that will really point out why trial blend number 2 is worse. Okay? And then we tried our MetaPWR blend. And this is what we found. Yeah, I was excited about it when we saw this result. We're like, oh my gosh, much, much fewer red balloons. Right? We have those nice pink balloons almost all the way across. And so as we compare the studies, all 3 of them together, you can see Smart and Sassy is on the dark, I don't know what color that is up there, reddish, orangish, reddish. And then the purple is trial blend number 2. And you can see down there towards the 120 slide there, it was worse, right? In how much adipogenesis or fat cell maturation we got. But you can see the MetaPWR blend, how in the orange it significantly decreased fat cell maturation, right? And so we had far more pink balloons with using our MetaPWR blend than we did the others. So pretty impressive results. So when it comes to our MetaPWR blend, this is how you might want to do it. You might want to take it to inhibit fat cell maturation. You might want to use it to help curb cravings and then support your metabolic health. Now, here's the other reality. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't have research, despite the fact that I think that it's true. I don't have research saying that it shrinks your existing fat cells. Okay? Now, anecdotally, I'm sure over time we're going to hear that. However, here's what I do know. About every 3 to 5 years, your fat cells die off and they create a new fat cell to replace the old one. And the good news is they're not born as large red balloons. They're born as small pink balloons, and I prefer mine to stay that way. And so this is a line that I will be using every day. I will be using the MetaPWR blend to keep whatever fat cells are turning over and creating small, new pink balloons to stay as pink balloons for the rest of my life. That's how I want to use this MetaPWR blend. So, pretty excited about that information. Okay, let's move on to this concept. This is one where we talk about blood sugar spikes. Now, is there anyone in here that has a teenage child? Anybody? Okay. Do you remember when you first had your teenage child driving? And they thought, well, there's 2 pedals here for a reason. I either need to be on the gas or I need to be on the brake, right? And so they would like, right? And you were like, oh, this is so much fun riding with you because we're either braking or going really fast. It's one or the other, right? And that's true of our system as well. When we have blood sugar spikes and drops, and spikes and drops, it turns out that wears on our bodies. So the same is true of starting and stopping in a car. It wears on your brakes, it wears on your engine. The car breaks down sooner if you're constantly gas, brake, gas, brake, gas, brake. The same is true of your body as well. If you're constantly high sugar, low sugar, high sugar, low sugar, your system wears out sooner. As a matter of fact, we know from research that we used to think that it was just the spike that caused the problem in the system. We also now know that it's the rapid drop that causes problems as well. And so we're aware from research that this isn't good for us. So what do we do about that? Well, that's really where MetaPWR Assist comes in. Now I know that it's not available in Canada from the Canadian market yet. We are working very hard on getting that here, but you can order it from the US. So when you look at the ingredient stack of the MetaPWR Assist, we've got mulberry leaf, we have berberine in it, we have cinnamon, and then of course we have our MetaPWR blend in it. Now I'm not going to talk about all those ingredients, and especially when we get to Advantage, that has a ton more ingredients, I'm not going to talk about all of those. But I want to highlight two ingredients here within our MetaPWR Assist product. That's our mulberry leaf and our berberine. Let me tell you why these things are important. Let's go to the mulberry leaf first. Mulberry leaf has within it 12% DNJ. You don't need to know what DNJ stands for because it's a big fancy long word. But let me just tell you what DNJ does. DNJ is an amino sugar. That amino sugar binds to an enzyme in our GI tract that breaks down carbohydrate. Carbohydrate are long chains of sugar. And so as that enzyme binds to carbohydrate, it releases that sugar, which very easily passes into our bloodstream, and then our sugar goes up. But when we have something like DNJ that binds that enzyme, now all of a sudden the carbohydrate can't get broken down. So it passes through the GI tract because it's too large to be absorbed into the bloodstream as a carb, passes through the GI tract and passes right through us. So the research tells us that we actually block in a standard meal, we block about 12% of the carbs that we consume by using this mulberry leaf. In a high maltodextrin meal, maltodextrin is another carbohydrate usually used in processed foods, it actually will block 42% of maltodextrin. So pretty significant. So therefore, when you block the carbohydrate breakdown, you now actually decrease your blood sugar spike, which is nice. Now let's talk about berberine for a minute. I've been recommending berberine in my practice, and I spoke with someone in here earlier that also has been using berberine in their practice, but I've been using berberine in my practice for a lot of years. Berberine is an AMPK activator. Again, not important that you know that, other than the fact that what happens is berberine helps our body recognize the glucose that is in the bloodstream, pull it out of the bloodstream where it's doing that damage, and pulls it into the cell where the cell can turn it into energy. So that we don't have high blood sugars because the sugar is out of the bloodstream and where it's supposed to be. It helps our body recognize that the sugar is there and to get it into the cell. So, really important. So, again, doTERRA, we're like, well, let's find out, does this really work? So we did some research. What we found is this. This is a trial of 50 people. We did it over a 3-month time period. And we found that average blood sugar fell from 102 to 89. That's a 13% decrease. Now, I will tell you as a physician, when someone comes into my practice that has a blood sugar of 89, I'm like, way to go. And if somebody comes into my practice with a blood sugar of 182, we have a longer appointment. And we have a lot longer discussion because of where that means they're headed. And so this can be really the difference between a long talk with your doc or a shorter talk with your doc, because we know that an 89 blood sugar is really helpful. So a 13% decrease of blood sugar overall, and that's in a very short study and a non-standardized meal, meaning people can eat what they wanted to, what they were normally eating, and this is what we found. This is significant. So MetaPWR Assist is really meant to help smooth out the curves, the blood glucose spikes and drops. Okay, reduces carbohydrate absorption, which we talked about that of simple carbs and helps us have a healthy response to our blood sugar. Let's move on to cellular integrity. So cellular integrity is an issue. We want to make sure that our cells are functioning optimally, that they're doing all the things that they should be doing. So we want to not only look good or feel good, but we also want to look good. We want to really have this come from the inside out. Now, we're going to talk about collagen in a minute. Now, I know, ladies, because this is largely a room of women, y'all get a little excited about collagen. Okay? And the reason is because of the wrinkles and the fine lines and the glowing skin and all of that. Now, from a physician's perspective, to me, that's a side effect. Okay? And that's a good side effect. I mean, there's good ones, there's bad ones, but that's great. It's great that we can have fewer wrinkles and all that. But I will tell you, collagen is far more metabolically active. It is doing some things at a cellular level that causes that to happen to you. I also happen to be a fan of women aging gracefully. If you're going to be in your 50s, look like you're in your 50s, right? It's okay, right? It's okay. If we're blessed to live long enough, we should own that, right? And so trying to look 25 when we're in our 50s, I'm not excited about that. We should own our age. It's okay. So let's talk about our MetaPWR Advantage product. This is an amazing product line. I really love this product. This is one that I am addicted to, okay? I just had mine just a half hour ago because I hadn't had mine this morning. So this product supports healthy biological aging and increases our health span. It also is helpful for metabolically changing, I would say, how we use our fats in our bloodstream, put it that way. Improves cognitive function. Really, that's the thing that I hear about across the board. People are really experiencing so much more clarity and energy throughout the day when they're taking their advantage. And that's the number one thing that I hear. There are a certain segment of the population that has challenges with focus. And from when I talk to those people, even some of those folks who are on my medical advisory board, they're like, I have not felt this focused in forever. So this is an amazing product for that. Supports lean muscle, supports skin elasticity and firmness. Again, there's that wrinkle issue there, right? But this product, this ingredient stack is pretty incredible. And again, I'm not going to go over all of those, but I just want you to know it's really a complex system that we've developed here. There's the collagen, which I will talk about. There's resveratrol in it, which we get from Japanese knotwood. There's red orange fruit extract, or red orange complex, which is actually a blood orange. For those of us who are familiar with blood oranges, we just put the fancy name on it. There's our blend in it. Now, our blend is important. We are an essential oil company, so oils are what we do. But let me just tell you why the blend in this product is important. The reason is that we don't absorb NAD and NMN very well from our GI tract. Turns out that lots of people will tell you, well, the only way to get that in your bloodstream is to have it be put in IV. Well, and probably for the rest of the world, that's true. But we know something that they don't know. And that is, we know that our citrus oils increase glutathione naturally in our system. And when you have good amounts of glutathione, you absorb NMN and NADH just fine. So we have within our blend our grapefruit and our lemon, and it's in this product so that our glutathione levels can be at a good level, enough to absorb our NMN and our NADH. Okay? So let's talk about our marine collagen for a minute. I think this is a really important point to make, that almost everything you've been told about collagen is wrong, unfortunately. Okay? So, as a matter of fact, when we were doing this with some of our diamonds, someone asked the question, well, Dr. Riggs, could we get a vegan collagen? No. And I'm like, well, it's kind of like asking for a unicorn. It's kind of a mythical creature. Collagen is made by animals. Okay? That's just the truth of it. You can't find a plant that is going to make collagen. It just doesn't work that way. And so when someone markets vegan collagen, it is exactly that. It is marketing. There's no such thing. So be aware of that, okay? The number 2 thing that you hear about collagen is that we don't absorb it well. Now that is true. We don't absorb collagen well. Collagen's a really long chain of amino acids. And we don't absorb large chains of anything. Remember I told you carbs, right? Particularly complex carbs are hard for us to absorb. So we have to break those down into smaller pieces for us to absorb it. The same is true of collagen. Okay, too large for us to absorb. Now our collagen is 12 times more bioavailable. And I'll tell you how we do that in just a minute. We also have 9 unique collagen types within our product. Most collagen that you buy on the market today has 2 types of collagen. Some of them that are really high-end have 3 types of collagen. But I have yet to find any that have more than 3. And we have 9 types of collagen in ours. The other thing is that ours is activated when you put it into water. Okay? Now I'll admit, on occasion when I don't have water, I just do a straight sugar like stuff.
Oh.
But, because I have water in my system, it'll mix. Okay? but the fact is that we don't have it in water. It's not in solution. Much of the collagen that you buy on the market today is in solution already. The only way that they can put it in solution is they have preservatives in that solution to keep the collagen intact. Okay? We don't do that at doTERRA. That's not what we're about. So if you're going to have any sort of shelf life of collagen, it has to be a dry collagen, which is what we do. So when we look, here's a slide for the 9 different types of collagen and what they do. Our collagen is sustainably sourced from fish out of Italy. And so we know that, just like we do with our growers, we know where it comes from, we know where they're getting the fish, and you can see the different things that each of those collagen does. Now, going back to the vegan collagen, I forgot to mention this when we were talking about that. If you're wanting the skin benefits of collagen, and you're vegan or vegetarian, then you can use our yarrow palm supplements to get those same skin benefits. It's not going to be the same metabolism benefits, but the firm basement membrane, the fine lines, the wrinkles, you'll get there with the yarrow palm supplement that we have, okay? So just so you know. So let's talk about how we get this 12 times more bioavailable. You can see at the top here, these are collagen as a macromolecule. They're long chains of amino acids. We don't absorb those very well, and the system has to work really, really hard to break those down, and it doesn't do a great job of this. And so we've actually hydrolyzed our collagen to be tripeptides. It's actually 70% tripeptides. These smaller molecules that we're very easily able to absorb, and then the bonus is our system doesn't have to reformulate all of those small molecules into larger strains of collagen. We all have collagen in our system. It's joints, muscles, tendons, ligaments. About 32% of all the protein in our body is actually collagen. And so it's a very important thing for us to have. So if we have 12 times more absorbable collagen, what that means is that when you're buying a 15-gram collagen on the market, or even a 20-gram collagen on the market, and ours is only 3 grams, remember you're absorbing 12 times more. It's like taking a 36-gram dose, which also is not on the market today. You can't find a 36-gram dose of collagen. So ours is 3 grams, but because it's much more absorbable, you have so much more available in your system than you did by taking another type of collagen. Okay? So let's go back to this slide, which is our pillars of metabolic health. Again, we're friends, I'll be honest with you. Here's the deal. You can take this product and change nothing about your life, and it will help. Okay? It will help. Some. You want to really change your life? What you do is you pay attention to all the pillars. You make sure that you're investing in your healthy relationships. You make sure that you're managing your stress level really well and getting enough rest at night. You make sure that your nutrition is really solid. You make sure that you're moving every day. So this is where I want to just tell you about my own experience. So I started on this product August 16th of this year. And I realized over the last few years, my metabolic health was not where I wanted it to be. I had recently gone to see my own doctor and taken a look at some of my own blood work, and that darn scale told me a number I was not comfortable with. And I realized, I got to change some things. So I started doing some things differently. I looked really close at my nutrition, and thankfully August is the time that our garden produces amazing things, and our orchard starts to produce some amazing things. So I really went really deep into making sure that we were eating mostly out of our garden. I started doing some intermittent fasting. That was for me. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but I started doing a 16-8 intermittent fasting, and twice a week I do a 20 and 4 intermittent fast. I started really paying attention to my carbohydrates, realizing that stress makes me crave carbs. And that wasn't so good. And so I decreased my carbohydrates, and I pay real close attention that when I'm at home, I'm less than 30 grams of carbs a day, and when I'm traveling, I try to keep it under 50 grams of carbs a day. Because, travel and food is amazing when you're in other places. I started running every day. So I try to go on a run every day, and on those days that I don't run, I make sure that I get about 12 to 15,000 steps in a day. So many of my meetings now, that traditionally were spent sitting, we actually now take walking when I'm back at the home office. And I started to make sure that I'm really investing in those relationships that are most important to me. I have 5 children, making sure that I'm investing time in each of them, and I'm investing time in my best friend at home, my sweetheart. And so making sure that we still are dating and that we're still courting each other, despite being married for a very long time. And those things have made a significant change in my life. The first thing I noticed was clarity. I have so much more clear thought now than I did before. The second thing I noticed was energy. I have so much more energy than I did before. And that to me is fantastic, because now I can do a whole lot more things, right? I spend a lot more time with my son hiking. He loves to hike in the mountains by our home. And then I found, incidentally, that I started to shed some pounds. Now, not everybody's going to, but doing those changes and taking the MetaPWR system, I've dropped 27 pounds since mid-August.
Wow.
At some point, my body will find its set point, and I'll stop dropping some pounds, but right now it continues to drop a few pounds a week, and that's okay, all right? But that's not why I take the product. I want to be very clear. This is not a weight loss product. So if you're looking like, this will just help me shed the pounds, that's not what this is geared for. This is geared for helping you to be metabolically healthy, and as a side effect from that, potentially you could drop some weight as well. Because healthy metabolism equals a healthy weight. It's just the laws of nature, just how it works. So let's talk about how do I use the system, okay? Because we talked about how amazing the system is, but I want to talk about how to use the system. And this is going to be a spectrum. As it turns out, metabolic health is somewhere along the spectrum. So we're going to talk about Susie first. Sarah, sorry, we call her Sarah. Sarah is already super active. So Sarah gets up in the morning and she runs 20 minutes to the gym, and then at the gym she does about 30 minutes of her weight resistance exercises, and then she runs 20 minutes home. And then she typically has a protein shake for breakfast. And so for Sarah, she might use the product in this way that you'll see up here, right? She's gonna do the protein shake followed by MetaPWR Advantage for breakfast. And then she might take her MetaPWR soft gel with LLV in the morning. Then for lunch, she goes out to lunch with her husband of 15 years, and she knows that as she goes out, that's probably going to be her highest carb meal of the day. So for her, she takes her MetaPWR Assist about 20 minutes before that meal. Then she might chew the gum or use a beadlet in the afternoon. And then in the evening, her dinner consists of a healthy salad with an oil vinaigrette, salad dressing, and she might take another MetaPWR soft gel with her second dose of LLV, and then use some lavender on her feet or in the diffuser to support a good night's sleep, making sure she's getting her rest. And then she's done all of the pillars of metabolic health throughout the day. And that's Sarah. Sarah's already healthy, she's doing fantastic metabolically, and she just wants to make sure that she can continue to age gracefully. And that's her goal. And then there's my friend Sam. And Sam has had a different experience. Sam, over the last few years, is now working from home, which for Sam has been a bit of a challenge. He's also experienced a lot more stress because he hasn't had the outlets that maybe Sarah has chosen to do. And so Sam is dealing with some things that has been frustrating for him. He himself has gone to see his doctor recently and found some numbers that he doesn't like, nor does his doctor. And what Sam has discovered is that working from home puts him a lot closer to that refrigerator. And when work stress piles up, he has a lot more free access to those carbohydrates that help us deal with stress. And because Sam doesn't have a time that he goes home at the end of the day, Sam has found himself working late into the evenings, which then has affected two things, his marriage and his sleep. So Sam has realized, I gotta change some things. Now's the time. I gotta change some things. So Sam begins to do some things differently. He realizes that he's gotta move more. And so Sam gets up in the morning. Whoa, let's go back. Go back one slide here. There we go. Sam gets up in the morning, he takes his MetaPWR Advantage, he takes a MetaPWR Assist, and he takes his LLV. He then has the soft gel while he's at work. And the reason he does is because mid-morning Sam has developed this habit. There's this drink that's brown and carbonated and sugary that he really likes mid-morning to give him energy throughout the rest of the morning. And he wants to quit that habit. And so he now takes his MetaPWR soft gel to help him deal with that craving a little bit. And then at lunchtime, Sam decides he's going to have salad for lunch. And that's what he consumes for lunch. And he actually doesn't take MetaPWR Assist with that. Well, it says here he does, but let's just say he's a salad, which has no carbs in it. So then he doesn't do the MetaPWR Assist. But he takes a MetaPWR Advantage in the afternoon also, followed with some water and some gum. In mid-afternoon, when he typically gets that crash, anybody experience that 2:30 p.m. crash of energy? When he typically gets that and reaches for carbs to refuel his blood sugar, like chips, what he does is he decides, nope, I'm not doing that anymore. So he actually now reaches for the MetaPWR soft gel again to help him decrease that carb craving. For dinner, which consists of chicken, a roll, and a side salad, and some cooked vegetables, he now grabs his MetaPWR Assist about 20 minutes before he takes his dinner and takes another MetaPWR Advantage along with his evening LLV dose. He goes for a walk with his wife after dinner for about an hour where they talk about things of the day. He's able to talk about work stress. He's able to talk about the things that are going on and affecting their lives, and she's able to share with him what's going on. And the night before bed, he uses some petitgrain, the man's lavender. He's not into the flowery smells. And he uses that petitgrain to help support a good night's sleep. Now, Sam has changed his lifestyle. He's recognized he needs to make some changes in his life. We all fit somewhere along that spectrum. I would encourage you to identify yourself. Are you a Sam? Are you a Sarah? Or are you somewhere in between? And figure out how to apply this system to you. So let's review the system as to how you might use it. So step one is this one. Step one is our MetaPWR blend in its various forms. It comes in beadlets, comes in oil, which you now have. Ideally, eventually it will come in a gum here, right? And the soft gel. But you use this to help curb those cravings. So if you have times of day where that becomes a challenge, and that's where you reach for this. And it is amazing to help you also not create red, fluffy balloons. Right? That's what the research tells us. And then step two would be your MetaPWR Assist. MetaPWR Assist can be taken with your largest meal of the day if you're a Sarah, who does it once a day, or if you're a Sam, you take it with any meal that you're going to consume carbohydrates with. That's how you would use your MetaPWR Assist. And then your MetaPWR Advantage product is step three. And your MetaPWR Advantage is 1 sachet a day in cold or room temperature water. Don't put it in hot water or coffee. It breaks things down. We don't want that. So put it in cold or room temperature water and drink that once a day if you're a Sarah. And if you're a Sam, it can be done twice a day. I, like Jared, have days where I take 2 a day. Other days, I just take 1 a day. Just depends upon what I feel like I'm needing for that day. As I look at my schedule for the day, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a day where I need lots of energy. So then to take 2 sachets of the MetaPWR Advantage product. So find your space, find out where you are. Now we do have an education series on MetaPWR and metabolism. I will tell you, we spent a long time developing this because metabolism is not an easy conversation to have. It's not an easy concept to understand. And so if you'll scan this QR code, you can get access to that coursework. The first few chapters are kind of a shallow dive into metabolism, and for some people, like, that's enough. You want to know a deeper dive and go really deep into science. There's Dr. Osgothorpe on there, I'm on there, Alex DeBell is on there, Dr. Nicole Stevens is on there, and we do a much deeper dive into the products and how they work for you. So those of us that are in the nerd herd, that's your place to go get this information. So let me just share this with you. I want to talk about what this means to us. Let me share with you why I'm at doTERRA. I had a very successful primary care practice in northern Utah. I was on the medical advisory board for doTERRA. And my practice was going really well. I had a partner that I brought on a few years ago. I had many mid-level practitioners with us. We'd expanded to several other locations. I was overseeing 5 clinics. Life was good. But I turned to my wife one day and I said, I feel like there's more. And she said, oh no. And I said, in my practice, for my personal practice, the patients that I can see about 4,500 patients a year. What if there's a way to affect more people's lives? About 3 months later, Dr. Hill called me up and said, I want to have a conversation with you. So I went down to headquarters in Pleasant Grove and spent about an hour with him having a conversation about, he just had a bunch of questions for me. And then I went back home. Okay, that's fine. 2 weeks later, Doc called again and said, Dave Sterling wants to have a conversation. Sure. Go down and meet with our CEO, it's no problem. So I went down. A week after that, Dr. Hill called me up and said, congratulations, you have the job. I'm like, I didn't apply, frankly. And he said, we want you to come to doTERRA full time. We want you to join our team. So I sat down that night after that phone call was extended to me, the offer was extended to me, and had a conversation with my wife. And I said, you know, maybe this is the answer to the problem. I can affect 4,500 patients in my practice, but imagine if I could partner with millions of wellness advocates across the world and how many people they can help. This metabolic problem is huge in our world today. We all know people that are suffering with this challenge. People that have tried for years and perhaps decades to overcome this and aren't having success. We can help that. We as a group can reach those people and say, I may have a solution for you. We should try this. We should focus on these 5 pillars, and I have a supplement that can help support all this. And you can have incredible results with this. That is why I'm here. It's because you're here. If you weren't here, I wouldn't be here. But because each of you know 10 or 15 or 20 people, and then they know 10 or 15 or 20 people, that this can be a solution for them, that's why I come. That's why when they reached out to me and said, would you come to Canada? I said, yes, I will come.